Welcome everyone to another Observability Lab. Today we're talking about live debugging in Dynatrace. Now we've talked about this in the past, but many of you have said, is this really only available in full stack mode? Many of our customers are using infrastructure or discovery mode because that's all they need, because maybe they are instrumenting their apps with OpenTelemetry already. So now, Josh, I wanted to welcome you back. We have done 2 debugging sessions already. Folks, the recordings to those videos are in the description of the video. But please, Josh, help us understand how customers, how Dynatrace users that are using either infrastructure or discovery mode can also benefit and use Live Debugger.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Andy, for having me back. We'll jump right into it. So as you mentioned prior, you needed to be using full stack. And so more recently, we've also added support for discovery and infrastructure mode. So when you're using full stack, you automatically get that end-to-end visibility from your infrastructure all the way down to the code level, and Live Debugger works and you're able to utilize that. Now you can be using infrastructure or even discovery mode where you're just monitoring your critical host infrastructure and maybe everything else with discovery, and just looking at memory, CPU usage, and all of that kind of stuff. And you can now go and directly turn on the Live Debugger within that mode as well. So just touching on the prerequisites, you need to be using Dynatrace SaaS and DPS licensing, of course. You need to have OneAgent installed. And the supported runtimes are JVM-based languages, so Java, your Kotlin, Scala, or Node.js. And so now you can be using any of those in any of the modes that we talked about and get the benefits of using the Live Debugger. Just to quickly recap as well, I wanted to also touch on what you need to do in order to use the Live Debugger and the settings that need to be configured. So you need to be on a minimum of OneAgent version 3.09. You need to have the Live Debugger capability enabled within your active gate. If you have any locally deployed active gates in your environment, there's a capability that you toggle on, which should be on by default. Then once you have those things there, you can actually go into the observability for developers setting within the Dynatrace settings, and you'll be able to toggle on this observability for developers setting, as well as a OneAgent feature, which is under settings, preferences, OneAgent features, and you'll search for Live Debugger and you'll toggle it on based on the runtime that you're using, either JVM or Node.js. And then finally, in order to control this, in terms of how you roll this out within your environment, you can set up IAM policies for the Live Debugger usage, for admin roles, and then create groups where you invite developers who you want to have this capability to that group, and then roll things out that way. That way you have full control over who sees it and who's able to use it. And so with that, I wanted to jump into a quick demo where we're going to talk about, specifically in discovery mode, how do you actually go about turning this on? So normally you actually go in and toggle on the observability for developers setting, but there's one other setting that we'll need to toggle on that we'll take a look at in the context of a Java application that I have running in a VM with the OneAgent already deployed in discovery mode. And with that, we'll jump right into the demo. All right, so jumping into the demo, what I have is I have a Java application that's deployed on a VM in the cloud. This is a Java app that's built with Gradle. It's a to-do app. And so I've deployed it. It's up here. I can open a browser tab where we have our to-do tasks that we can add to the list. And where I've started and what I've done ahead of time leading up to this is I've come to the deploy OneAgent page. I've selected Linux because I'm using an Ubuntu VM. And this is where I've come in and I've selected the monitoring mode, right? So you can come here, choose full stack infrastructure or discovery. I chose discovery. I generated my API tokens and I went to the VM and I deployed OneAgent where I have my Java app up and running. And so I've done that just before the call here. And you can see that it's connected. I see that I have one OneAgent deployment. I have my VM that shows up here. And what I've done also ahead of time is I've configured some of the settings that we just talked about in the presentation. I've come in, I've turned on the observability for developers. I came in, I set my OneAgent feature. I've toggled those things on. And if I come into the Live Debugger, you'll notice that it still shows me that there's 0 instances connected. So we don't actually see anything connected. And so that's where I want to kind of bring you to and close that gap to show you exactly what's required when you're running in discovery mode. So it's actually very simple. You just simply need to come in to your host that you've set up. I'm just going to click on it. It's going to bring me to my infrastructure view. I can see the host here. I'm in discovery mode, so I'm just collecting the standard things: CPU, memory, availability, network information. And where you want to go is you want to jump into the host settings. So I'm just going to click on that and open up the host settings. And I'm going to go into the host monitoring. And that's going to bring me into the host monitoring settings screen. And you'll notice there's an advanced settings section. So you want to click on that. And this is the important page right here. So we have process agent injection set up. You want to leave that on, but you'll see this additional setting here called code module injection. And it says this injects the code module when you're in discovery mode. So what that's actually going to do is when you toggle this on, it's going to make it so that we inject the code module, which is the live debugger piece, so that you can actually go in and use the live debugger as part of your application, even though it's not typically done by default in discovery mode. We'll talk a little bit later about how you can turn this on by default, not just in the UI, if you want to turn it on across all of your infrastructure where you're deployed in discovery mode. So I'm going to save that setting. And the one thing that we will need to do for the first time is come and restart our Java process. So I'm just jumping into the command line where I'm connected to that VM. I'm just going to terminate the Java process, and I'm gonna restart it, and that will restart my Spring Boot service. So this is all just a standard Java Spring Boot service that's running remotely here. So I've restarted that, I've connected it, and now when we come back into the live debugger after just a short time, we should find that that specific host is going to then show up within the live debugger and allow us to go in and start to set up a debug session like we normally would. So I'm going to jump in, and we'll give it just a minute or two, and we should see it actually show up in the table here.
So
and so once that happens, we'll be able to select it. We'll be able to go forward and actually configure a breakpoint. So just took a little bit of time, 30 seconds or so, and I can actually see it show up here. So I can now go through the typical steps that I might go through, where I select the host. This is my demo server. Click next. You'll connect your source code repository like you normally would. I've connected it directly to my GitHub. It picked it up automatically for me. I can click done, and I can really do what you normally would do in using the live debugger, is browse for a specific source code file. I'm looking for my to-do controller specifically here because that has the business logic that runs when I add to-do items to the list, for example. And so I can just click to the left of a line number. You can see it turns on, it turns solid purple, and I can start to come in here and add tasks to my to-do list, go to the store, buy milk, whatever to-do items that you might have. And after a short period of time, those will then start to show up within the live debugger. And so that's really all you need to do in order to get that going. So it's just a matter of turning on that code module injection. And as you can see, we start to get some debug snapshots locally here.
That's really cool. So if I can recap, on your Linux machine, you've installed the OneAgent in discovery mode. You then enable that for that particular host, you actually want to have the code module injection and obviously the developer support on. And then once you restart the application, that's needed for the first time, obviously, when you enable the code module injection on a host, then the live debugger is active, and then you can just set any breakpoints. And folks, this is the cool thing about this: you're getting a breakpoint experience like if you would debug locally, but this server can run anywhere. It could be a production server, like in your case, it's some Linux server in some cloud. Really impressive and really cool now that we see this also in discovery mode, because many of our customers are using the discovery mode for certain hosts. And thank you so much for showing us all this. This is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you do all this without pausing or stopping the application. As you mentioned, it can run in production. And after you do that, you're good to go. There's a couple just final things I wanted to touch on. Perfect. So just to kind of recap things here, with a couple quick tips. So what you saw from the demo is that you need to go to your host monitoring advanced settings, and you'll see this code module injection toggle. You need to toggle that on for any OneAgent instance in discovery mode where you'd like to use the live debugger. And so we did this manually in the demo, but you may have cases where you want to do this on a broader scale. Maybe you have this deployed across hundreds or thousands of hosts within your infrastructure, and you don't want to actually go to the UI to toggle this on for every host where you'd like to use the live debugger. So in those cases, you can actually pass a command line when you roll out OneAgent called set auto injection enabled, set that to true, and then any host you've deployed this to, that code module injection will be automatically turned on for you, and that's all you need to do, and then you're ready to use a live debugger.
Awesome. That's great to hear. This also works at scale through infrastructure as code or configuration as code. Josh, thank you so much for doing this session. It's really great for everyone that may not use the full stack agent. Folks, if you're using OpenTelemetry only, the only thing you need is a discovery mode, and then you automatically get the live debugging capabilities with all of the control things that we want to give you as an enterprise solution, meaning controlling where you want to enable this and who is allowed to use this type of feature. Josh, thanks again, and looking forward to having you back with more updates on the live debugger.
Thanks for having me, Andy.